through this management consulting book. This book is actually written by Mark P. Cosentino. So, for the way that I'm trying to build a career for myself in management consulting, more specifically, I want, hands down in 6 months, I want to have a good job in a good company, which I can list you as BCG, McKinsey, or Bain. These are the companies that I'm looking forward. And the second thing that I'm actually trying to work upon is quantitative finance, for which I am aiming for going forward in my career in the companies like Citadel or Berkshire Hathaway or Hudson River Trading. These kinds of, or JP Morgan in the quantitative researcher or as a quantitative trading kind of person who is doing and handling all these profiles. So without having any kind of plan, I'm just trying to like you know just I'm just starting because there was just for too many years too much contemplation about what I wanted to do and where I wanted to start. And after seeing a lot of people and after having realized that what I want and realigning the goals of myself with me, I am moving forward. So this is a book which is actually if you read read the title of this book, it says, "When in doubt, MBS turn to Bible." Case in Point has become the biggest business book you never heard of. Wall Street Journal. So this is a Case in Point book, which is actually the 11th edition that I have got myself. And this book is actually the best for preparing or for your case interview. If you're having a management consulting or a case-based interview where you feel your interview might be asking you case-based question. What are cases? If I talk to you about cases, what do you understand when I tell you that, in a very general and a very understanding kind of language, if I tell you what cases are, it's literally any kind of situation. If I'm giving you for a person who has kind of built himself or herself that much of understanding where and how economics and that how business impacts how GDP, how inflow outflow, how legal policies, how economic policies, how this and that things impact the career of a person, or these kinds of things impact a business, and how actually the people who are in the strategic domain of any business, or kind of how they are dealing with these things, you will know and you will move forward. So this is basically a list of some of the cases, because this is just a start, but this is not just something all of it. So we are going to just sit down. So as you can see, there are 332 pages in this book, and it's better when you have become older that you just sit and build for yourself a task, sit down and complete that task in that one go, because building routines out of one task will just make you stuck in those tasks forever. So it's better to just sit a day and complete that task so that it can be completely off your list. So we're just going to sit right now, and we have to set a conviction to complete this book, this 332 pages. We are on third page right now, and we are starting with most foreverly these kinds of content, which is basically the introduction, the interview, case questions, IV case system, practice cases, case starts, case practice, partner cases, final analysis, and partner case charts. So there is something that we have to go with their kind of seven contents on a major part. So to tell you, for example, I actually did started this book in my MBA, but I was not able to complete it because I was too distracted with the amount of knowledge that was flowing towards me, and because of that, I am unable to complete this book. But now I actually am determined to read through this book. So because I want to go in a good company, I want to make a switch. I want to grow in life, and I want to do things for myself. So I really want to do this. So let's study. So our client is Skullcandy. The company hired us to determine whether and how it should enter the wearables market. So if you don't know the company Skullcandy, Skullcandy actually makes earphones or kind of wearable electronic devices. So consulting firms are in the business of renting out brains. Your consulting firms are, as I told you, what are the consultants? You have the brain and you have to give them a strategy that, okay, you can do this about this problem that you're having. So the consultants are paid to synthesize massive quantities of foreign data, toss out the irrelevant information, structure an approach to a given client issue, and hypothesize logically and creatively for people of power and influence, such as the big wigs at Skull Candy. That's why consulting firms put so much weight on the case question. So because it allows them to judge how logically and persuasively a potential consultant, that is me, can present a case. So in essence, a case interview is a role-playing exercise. An interview gives you a hypothetical business situation and asks you to solve it. So keep in mind that in most cases there is no one right answer. Dialogue is always more important than consensus. So in consulting, because you have to follow the dialogue approach, because you want to give the best advice to somebody. So when you are giving the best advice to somebody, you have to be like, what, you have to tell those people that there is going to be certain thing, even the minute details you want to know for that, because that can actually define what are the kind of strategies that you're going to propose. And by reading these 3 4 lines, I've actually came to the conclusion that I am a born consultant. I actually am. I'm a born consultant. I have this kind of uh, a positivity, or rather I would say kind of belief I've got, because whatever this kind of traits that they've written about being a consultant, I actually meet all of them. So you should put yourself in your client's shoes and produce outcomes. The case isn't about you; it's about the client. So everything you say and do should move the case forward in the name of the client. So why do they give case interviews? Does it really match up to what I'll be doing as a consultant? Yes. Consulting firms have been giving case interviews for over 60 years. So as you can see below, the process is very similar. It's the timing that's different. A consulting engagement can last anywhere from 3 to 18 months. A case interview lasts anywhere from 20 to 40 minutes. The case simulation simulate a typical consulting project, consulting interview. Listen and clarify, the ability to scope a problem. Structure, identify issues or drivers, the ability to break down problems and identify business drivers issue, the ability to analyze and find insight, analyze and interpret data, summarize, recommend, the ability to summarize and communicate. So to nail a case interview, you need to know both how to prepare and how to perform. This book will help you do both. It walks you through the overall consulting interview, teaches you how to conduct your research, tells you what consulting firms are looking for in a candidate, explores the various types of case questions, and then introduces you to the IV case system. Case interviews given by consulting firms as well as by a growing number of companies in various industries have become increasingly complex. This is the standard frameworks that students once used to prepare for interviews, while still valuable, are no longer enough to solve these sophisticated cases. I developed the IVK system in order to simplify things. The system will allow you to make an impressive start without a long and awkward pause and ensure that you approach the answer in an organized and logical way. The difference between a framework and a system is that a framework is a tool and a system is a process, and all the tools built in. The IVK system is the most sensible and comprehensive case interview strategy you can learn. Keep in mind that case questions help educate you during your job search by acting as a self-imposed screening device. Is this the type of work you want to be doing? Is this the type of environment in which you can learn and flourish? You need to ask yourself, do I enjoy problem solving, or do I enjoy these types of questions and issues? Case questions can and should be fun. As you read on, you might be somewhat intimidated by the process. In case interviews, you get a lot to deal with in a very little time. But how can you possibly get it all right? But it's okay if you make errors in your cases. No one is perfect. So interviewers will correct you and you can move on. It's more about the way you recover from all the mistakes than making mistakes in the first place. I've found thousands of students who got the job even though they didn't score perfectly on every page. The best way to prepare is to hunker down and read this book and don't skip any pages. Attend all the case questions workshops sponsored by consulting firms or your career services office. Practice with your econ officer, professor, roommates, friends, and anyone you know who has worked or is currently working in consulting. Sounds like you'd better start reading. Right? Now, the interview, the second major part of this book. Relax, it's worse than you think. So, if you figure the odds of being chosen for an interview, having all the interviewers like you, and making it through 7 to 10 cases, you'll be spending next semester's tuition on lottery tickets. But you know what? You faced much tougher odds when you applied to the top school. Not only were you accepted, you even thrived. Forgot about the odds and concentrate on you. If there was ever a time for tunnel vision, this is it. Besides, the recruiters don't know about the time. They don't know, and we are sure not going to tell them. So head into your interview with a clean slate. This chapter will walk you through a first-round interview and show you how to prepare properly for each step. Some firms set up two back-to-back 45-minute interviews for the first round. In these interviews, one interview spends more time questioning you about yourself and gives you a short case question, while the other interview spends less time on you and more time on the case. Introduction: you get called after your you get called, offer your clammy hand, and then lie and say, "It's great to be here." Nothing to it. You did it last time. You did a blind date. Let's hope this goes a little better. You never get a second chance to make a first impression. So, eye contact, a pleasant smile, and a firm handshake are paramount. Questions about me. The first part of the interview is all about getting to know me. McKinsey calls it a PEI, or personal experience interview. They will ask you to come up with several examples of time when you influenced or persuaded a group about your relationship building style and about goals that you set for yourself and were successful in meeting. They will ask for examples of how you led a team during conflict, how you improved the process, and what were the results, and any innovative ideas that you came up with, and what were the results. So, interviewers will ask you several questions drawn from your resume, and anything on your resume is fair game. They may even ask you, life is a newspaper article, what's the headline? So, what they're looking for: confident, easy demeanor, strong communication skills. Are you a nervous wreck? Leadership ability and initiative. Forget about the time you organize that cake party. Ability to be a team player. Do you play well with others? Drive, aspirations, energy, morals, and ethics. Do you have any? In this part of the interview, you should be responding, not thinking. During the case question, you are going to do enough thinking to last you a week. You need to research yourself beforehand. Look at the list of the most commonly asked questions in a consulting interview. You will not be asked any of these questions, but if you take the time to write out the answers, or better yet, bullet point the answers, you will be forced to think about things you haven't thought about in years or ever. So don't be surprised if the interviewer asks, "Tell me about the time you persuaded a group to do something they didn't want to do." You offer your answer and you then hear, "Great, give me another example." It is common for interviewers to ask for two or three examples for the same question. When thinking through your answers, go three stories deep. Remember to bullet point your answers instead of writing scripts. People try to memorize scripts, but unless you're Christian Bale, there is no way you're going to deliver your answer and make it seem real. Interviewers remember stories and accomplishments better than common answers. So once in your life you want to get labeled, if you tell the interviewers a captivating tale about windsurfing across the English Channel, at the end of the day, when the interviewers see your name on the list, they'll remember you as the windsurfer. Everything you spoke about will come back to them if you see your name and think, which one was he if candidacy is over? Common ask consulting interview question. If you take time to answer these questions before the interview, you will be more articulate and focused when it comes time to perform. When you're ready, have a friend videotape your responses, critique your posture, facial expressions, and the confidence level in your voice. Do you say yes instead of yeah? Did it take you 20 seconds to explain something you would have explained in 10 seconds? Tell me about yourself. What are you doing here? Why consulting? Why did you pick your school? What do you think consultants do? What do you know about this job and a firm? Why would you choose our firm over our competitors? How are your quantitative skills? What percentage is 7 of 63? It's it's 1%. It's 1%. No, it's not 1%. What percentage is 7 of 63? Tell me of a time you showed leadership skills. Tell me about a time you were a team player. Give me an example of a time you influenced or persuaded a group. Tell me about a recent crisis you handled. Have you ever failed at anything? Have you ever failed at anything? Tell me about a time you took the initiative to start something. What type of work do you like to do best? Which other firms are you interviewing? Which other industries are you looking into? What accomplishments have given you the greatest satisfaction? What experiences, skills do you think are particularly transferable to our organization? Why should I hire you? How do I answer? Three of the most problematic interview questions are: have you ever failed at anything? With which other firms are you interviewing? With which other industries are you interviewing? How do you answer these truthfully? Have you ever failed at anything? Say yes. Everybody has failed at something. People fail all the time. That's how you learn. Do's: to talk about a failure, what you learn from that failure. Better yet, talk about how you failed, what you learned from that mistake, and then how you turned it into a success. A perfect example comes from Michael Jordan. He failed to make his high school basketball team his freshman year, yet preserved and became a basketball legend. Have a story to tell, make it memorable. Don't talk about a personal failure. Stay away from anything that is going to make the interview feel uncomfortable. Example, I never got to straighten things out with my dad before he passed away, or my girlfriend dumped me, or I couldn't outrun that police car when I was 17. Interviewers don't want to hear it. The other thing they don't want to hear about is an academic failure. If it did fail a course, they would know about it and ask you why it happened. Which other firms are interviewing. It's okay to tell them you are interviewing with other consulting firms. Competition stops. You'd be foolish to put all your energy into just one firm. However, you must be able to tell them why they are your first choice and which makes them better in mind than the other firms. So, with which other industries are you interviewing? Consulting goes hand in hand with three other industries. While interviewing for a consulting position, it's okay to mention that you're looking at investment banking, private equity, and a strategic planning. These positions need the same qualities in a candidate and require similar job skills. In fact, McKinsey's and BCG's biggest competitor is Goldman Sachs, not each other. Why consulting? The interviewer is going to ask you why you want to be a consultant. Not only should your answer be immediate, but you must also look at the interviewer right in the eye. If you look away, it indicates that you're thinking about the question, and that's enough to end the interview right and then there. You should have given this answer a great deal of thought long before you walked into the interview. While I don't want you to memorize your answer, I do want you to memorize bullet points. This makes your answer focused, linear, and often appropriate to length. Avoid talking aimlessly. Having several good reasons that you want to be a consultant isn't enough. It's not always what you say, that how you say it, and most important, what they hear. Your voice should carry sincerity and enthusiasm. Some reasons to enter consulting. You'll work and learn from very intelligent and articulate people. You'll develop a vast array of marketable skills in a prestigious environment. The learning curve never ends. You'll receive exposure to the corporate elite, the way they think and act and analyze their problems. You'll be exposed to many industries. You'll work as part of a team and you'll get to travel. The interviewer will also want to know why a firm, what's your motivation for a job with a firm. You need to know the differences between the various consulting organizations. A generic answer will hurt you. How do you do this? Do your homework. Go online and read about the firms, the people, and the board. Learn about the firm's culture as best you can by attending recruiting events, talking to anyone who works there or used to work there. They may ask you about your quantitative skills. This could be followed by small math questions such as what's 100 divided by 7? Or 9 is what percentage of 72? The questions are hard, but they might take you by surprise. It may be time to break out the flashcards. During the first part of the interview, you are being judged. The interviewer is asking herself whether or not she'd like to work and travel with you. Are you interesting, engaging? Do you have a sense of humor and like to have fun? This is better known as the airport test. The name comes from the question, how would I feel if I was snowed in with this candidate for 9 hours at the Buffalo airport? Would we have a lot to talk about, or would I have to prepare hours in Tacoma, or I wouldn't have to talk? It's important to remember that plane takes off and lands at the airport. So you should be judging them as much as they are judging you. The interviewer is also measuring your maturity, poise, and communication skills while thinking. So would I feel comfortable bringing this candidate in front of a client? An important part of the maturity test is to determine whether you think before you speak. I had a student who, when asked what percentage 3 of 17 is, blurted out 80%. I don't know how he got into college either. For him, that interview was over. What percentage 3 of 17 is? Not because he got the wrong answer, but because it was clear that he didn't think before he spoke. If he does something like that in an interview, what is he going to do in front of a client? I couldn't trust him, and if I couldn't trust him, I'm not going to hire him. Second part of the interview is the case question. These questions carry a tremendous amount of weight. You can pass the airport test, but if you fumble the case, that's it. Alternatively, if you hit a home run on the case, but have the social skills of a Homer Simpson, then you have the bigger problems in getting a job. We'll cover the case questions in depth in chapter 3. Homer Simpson. Let's just know who's Homer Simpson. Oh, okay. Okay. Your questions. The last part of the interview requires a good deal of research about both the industry and the company. So, in addition, if you can find out who will be interviewing you, you should be Googling them to see what articles they have written or issues they're involved with. So, you can bet that they will be Googling you. One question you can ask the interviewer, everyone tells me how wonderful it is to work here. But why? But what don't you like about your job? You'll get an honest answer, and interviewers like talking about themselves. which will reflect back positively on you. You can also ask what big challenges have you found in your projects in general, but also with new hires joining the projects. Another good question is, what are some of the qualities that a successful new hire has that will make them successful during their career? So, in your research, you should be looking for answers to the pre interview questions. Questions for which you can't locate answers become excellent questions for you to pose to your interviewer. However, before you ask your first question, if there is anything critical that you didn't get a chance to bring up in the interview, now is the time. Simply say, before I ask my first question, I just want to make sure you understand. Get it out before you leave the room. If you don't, you are going to kick yourself all the way home, and even worse, you'll never know whether that statement could have turned the tide in your favor. Before the interview, you should research the firm. You should know or ask what type of consulting does the firm do and what industries does it specializes in. How big is the firm in terms of number of offices and consultants? What kind of training and mentorship programs does it have? How much client contact does an associate consultant have the first year? How is the case team picked? How often are consultants reviewed? The best ways to collect these answers: attend career fairs and speak to the firm representatives. Pull out your list of questions and ask three or four. Make sure that you try to turn this meeting into a conversation. At the end, thank the reps for their time, ask them for their business cards, and inquire whether it would be all right if you call or email them with further questions. At this point, no one is going to judge you on your level of company knowledge. They are just going to provide information and hide the form. Scour the company's website. That will let you know how the firm sees itself and the image that it's trying to project. Most firms will have an extensive section on their website about the interviewing process. Talk to alumni and classmates who used to work for the companies that you are interviewing with. Often, career services offices will be able to match you up with alumni who are working with a specific industry. Interviewing past employees can be very enlightening. They will tell you more about their old firm in half an hour than you learn by spending 2 hours on the internet. Plus, they'll tell you things that you'll never find on the internet. They can be completely objective that don't have to try to sell the firm. Attend company information meetings. Get your name and face in the front of firm representatives so that they can associate your face with your resume. Well, these people don't have the power to hire you, they do have the power to get you on the interview list. Top tier firms often get 400 resumes for 100 first round interview slots. Snag that interview slot by networking and schmoozing with firm representatives every chance you get. One of the best kept secrets of company presentations is the value of arriving early. If a company presentation is scheduled to start at 6 p.m., show up at 5:40. Most students won't arrive until 6 p.m. or little after, but the firm's representatives show up at around 5:30 to make sure that the room is set up correctly and the cheese table is laid out nicely. If you show up early, not only will it impress the consultants, but it will allow you to get at least 5 minutes of quality face time with yourself or with one of them. They're more likely to remember you if you visit for 5 4 minutes at the beginning of the night than if you hang around until the end, hoping for 90 seconds of their time. So they are also more likely to have their business cards with them. Remember to ask for those business cards and send a follow up email. Search the Wall Street Journal, CNBC.com, Bloomberg.com, and other online resources for articles and information on the firm. This allows you to be current on any firm's news. Visit sites such as Glassdoor.com to get ex-employee and peer insights on the firm. Take your written list of questions with specific facts or figures you've dug up when you walk into the interview. This shows that you have done your homework and have given this interview a great deal of thought. Besides, if you freeze up, it's all right there in front of you. Third question. Let's just pause for a minute for this thing because I have to, I'm eating something, so let's just pause for that. Okay, okay, okay. I hope this news chart of I think it was the best way to go through a book because I was myself sitting like this, and I was not able to go through this book alone. So I thought of sitting down here and read this book to you guys because that way I was more able to relate with the content that is given in this book and speak about my mind. So whatever the questions that you guys have, I guess we all can have a kind of one-on-one a session on this. And even if one of you guys who is watching my live stream right now, if you guys are having any consulting questions or case study questions you guys want to discuss, we can have it. We can have kind of one-on-one session, and we can have debate. We can do free case study questions within ourselves because There is one of the most important things that I've discovered about management consulting, that it actually just needs you to do more and more cases. The more and more cases you do, you don't need any kind of coaching or consulting. Trust me, you don't need anybody. You just need to solve more cases. And if you have somebody to solve it with, that makes it more easier. You don't have to spend any kind of money or any, like, there is just nothing worth to spend your money on. Trust me. So I'm just going to do that. Just give me 5 minutes break. Okay, just a 5 minutes break, all right? तो मेरा फोन कहाँ है Hi guys, so we are back. So the question that we were dealing with was, why should I hire you? So this is your opportunity to shine and to market yourself. But before you launch into a laundry list of skills and attributes, uh, you may simply want to state that they should hire you because you want to be a consultant. Then reiterate all the reasons that you brought up earlier when they asked you why consulting. So consulting firms look for low risk hires. So if you are a low risk hire, if you worked in consulting, liked it and want to return or have done your homework, you know about the travel, the type of work, working on projects, and working as a part of a team. Consulting firms' biggest fear is that they will spend a lot of time and money recruiting, hiring, and training you, and only have to bail you out after 6 months because consulting isn't what you expected. So if they aren't convinced that this is what you want to do, then it doesn't matter how talented you are, it's not worth it for them to extend you an offer. The students receive job offers in consulting for four reasons. So they are able to convince the interviewer that they are committed to consulting and know that they're getting into. Example, the type of work, lifestyle, travel. They can demonstrate success oriented behavior. They exhibit good analytical skills when answering case questions, drawing conclusions from data. That's where we come in. They're able to articulate their thoughts, create a positive presence, and defend themselves without being defensive. So now you understand the structure of the interview for the first round. The subsequent rounds are not all that different. If you're applying for a summer internship, there are usually only two rounds. The second round is often held at the local office or a nearby hotel and usually consists of two interviews, both 60 minutes long, each with a heavy focus on case questions. For full-time hires, the third round is typically held in the firm's offices where there are five 60-minute interviews, again with a heavy emphasis on case questions. During all the rounds, you can expect to analyze many charts. In addition, some firms give written cases requiring you not only to analyze information but also to design charts to back up your recommendations. There are other kinds of first round interviews. Some firms conduct phone interviews while others conduct group based interviews. First round telephone interviews. Sometimes your first round interview will be conducted over the phone. Sometimes this is a screening interview. You may get a case question as well. Things to remember: if possible, go to a quiet and private place. Turn off the TV and lock the door so no one barges in and interrupts you. Most important, you are your voice. That's all the other person on the phone has to go on. Your voice should be upbeat and enthusiastic. Speak clearly and with confidence, but not arrogance. Finally, lose the calculator. I know it is tempting to have it right there, but if you get the answer too quickly or the interviewer can hear buttons clicking, next thing you'll hear is a dial tone. First round Skype Zoom interviews. In addition to all that, for a Skype or Zoom interview, you will need to dress up as you would for a regular interview. I've heard stories about the interview dressed nicely, about the waist wearing pajama bottom shorts or sweatpants. Normally, this wouldn't be a problem unless you have to give up and retrieve something. Also, be aware of your background. What can be the person on the other side of the computer see of your environment? If you have an inappropriate poster hanging on your wall, you might want to remove it, or the angle of the camera may permit. Zoom with students from around the world, and I'm always interested in the background what the apartment or dorm room looks like. It gives me additional information on their personalities and organization skills. More and more career services offices are providing quiet rooms in which you can conduct your interviews privately and in a professional environment. First round group case interviews. McKinsey and other firms sometimes hold group interviews for non MBA graduate students as part of their first round interviews. During a group interview, consultants look more at the group dynamics than at how the group answers the question. Does this candidate have the ability to build relationships, empathy, and teamwork? On one hand, you are a competitor of the other people in the group, but on the other, for this moment in time, you are teammates. People who are aggressive and try to dominate the conversation don't get called back. Remember, consultants will work in teams, and if you're not willing to be a team player, then you're out. In my business school classes, the professor rarely called on anyone who raised his hand while someone else was speaking because it indicated that the student wasn't listening to his classmate and had his own agenda. Like a business school class, like a business school case class, you're expected to build on what others have said and move the discussion forward, not to take it off on a tangent or in your own direction or move it back because you had a point you wanted to make. Getting challenged. Sometimes during a case, you'll be asked to make a decision to choose between A and B. If you choose A, the interviewer will look at you right in the eye and say, "Let me tell you why you're wrong." So if you had chosen B, he would have looked you right in the eye and said, "Let me tell you why you're wrong." So it doesn't matter which one you choose; he's getting to tell you that you're wrong. So again, he does this to see you how you react. Do you turn red? Do you just jaw tight and do your eyebrows shoot up? Can you defend yourself in your answers without becoming defensive? Can you maintain your cool and your professionalism? Can you handle it if someone snaps at you, or will you crumble and cry? So clients are going to challenge your findings and ideas all the time. The interviewer wants to make sure you can handle criticism when he gets in your face. So while he's telling you why you're wrong, if you don't find his answer very persuasive, then simply say, "That's what an interesting argument, but I didn't find it compelling. I'm sticking with answer A. That's what he wants you to do. Stick with your answer if you think you're right. Defend your answer without being defensive." If in his argument he brings up something that you didn't think about, and now that you are thinking about it, it changes everything. Admit that you were wrong. Simply say that that it was a very persuasive argument. And to be honest, I didn't think about the inventory issue. I think you're right. I think B is the right answer. There is no shame in changing your answer if you were wrong. It shows that you're still objective and open to reason. Remember, one of the main reasons corporations hire consulting firms is their objectivity. If you can remain objective about your answer, then you're one step closer to being a consultant. What the interviewer doesn't want you to do is change your answer just he said you were wrong because he said you were wrong. Rules for challenge interviews. Don't take it personally. They're doing it for everyone they interview. Try not to get flustered. Roll with the punches. But they, watch what you say. Make sure it is relevant to the interview. Remain confident. Confidence. To add to the fun, while all this is going on, you need to sound confident even if you don't feel confident. If your confidence level is too low, they're going to question everything you say. There is an old saying about Yale professors: they're often wrong but never uncertain. You need to carry that same mindset into your interview. Even if you're uncertain, you need to remain confident. Advice for international students. Over my 18 years at Harvard, I've advised thousands of international students pursuing careers in consulting. Most of these students initially wanted to work in the US before returning to their home countries. While many were successful, like their American classmates, most were not. Consulting jobs are very competitive and highly sought after. I offer three additional pieces of advice for international students. Be honest about your communication skills. Much of the interview process is driven by communication skills. Are you truly fluent in English? Do you have an accent? How pronounced is it? A couple of years ago, I worked with a brilliant Chinese student. He did very well in these mock case interviews I gave him. However, his language skills, particularly his presentation skills, were poor. While his understanding of English was excellent, his verbal and written skills left much to be desired. Against my advice, he applied to the Boston offices of all the top firms. While he received a number of first round interviews, he didn't get a single second round interview. He found himself competing against American Harvard students, and he didn't stand a chance. Think long term and play to your strengths. I met several times with the Russian student. Her English was excellent. She could articulate her thoughts and she had a good command of business English. While she had an Eastern European accent, she was never easy to understand. She was easy to understand. Her grades, work experience, extracurricular activities were just okay, but nothing great. So she faced some pretty stiff competition from American classmates. She wanted to work in New York. Her problem was in landing that first round interview. We talked about thinking long term. If she applied to the Moscow offices of this firm, she would have a significantly better chance of being hired than if she focused just on New York. She knew the language, the culture, and the economics of the region, and she had a degree from a prestigious American university. She could work in Moscow for 2 years, then transfer back to the US, which is exactly what she did. Come back to campus in case fighting form. Summer internships are tough to get, so don't be discouraged if you don't land one. If I have a pocket full of stories about students who didn't land a summer internship but did find a full-time consulting job upon graduation. There are many more full-time opportunities than summer positions, but they're still very competitive. Don't waste your summer. Use it to become a better candidate coming autumn. The first step is to secure a summer job where you'll be developing some of the same skills you would if you worked in a consulting firm. The second step is to practice your cases over the summer. I had a brilliant student from the Caribbean who had no business experience but plenty of great leadership experience. He received four first-round summer internship interviews. He made it to the second round with two firms but did not receive an offer. He spent the summer working for a large international financial agency in Washington, D.C., where he wanted to settle. He spent the summer contacting alumni who worked in the DC office of the two major consulting firms and inviting them out for lunch, coffee, or a beer. He learned about their firms and he made great connections within those offices. Every time he sipped a coffee or drank a beer with them, he asked them to give him a case question. This went on all summer long. When he returned to campus in September, he was in case fighting form and had many supporters within each firm. He ended up with full-time offers from both McKinsey and BCG. To summarize: strengthen and communication skills, think long-term and play to your strengths, come back to campus in fighting form. Advice for industry hires. If you're applying as an industry hire, there are a few things you need to know. When most of the hires made by the big consulting firms are university hires, the number of industry hires has been increasing. Although the breakdown of university over industry is still around in 80 to 20, having years of experience in a particular industry isn't always a good thing. For example, if you spent 10 years in the healthcare industry, some firms might be reluctant to hire you for your industry experience because you come with certain prejudices or beliefs about an industry. Firms are worried that if you see a problem with a client, you're going to solve it in the same way you solved it in the work where you used to work. So they like people who can look at a problem objectively with no preconceived notions. They will, however, draw on your industry knowledge when building industry files. So don't be surprised if you are against assigned to new industries at first. The interview process is somewhat the same. If you're applying to McKinsey, you'll probably be asked to take the written exercise that most non-MBAs have to take. The first round might consist of three one-hour interviews, which will have both a personal experience component as well as a case. I'd be surprised in the case you get touch on your odd old industry. They want to test your thought structure, not your industry knowledge. They will expect you to be more confident than a university candidate, most professional in your demeanor. Another thing to remember is that you will enter the firm at the same level as a newly minted MBA. Unless you bring a host of clients with you, you may be reporting to someone years younger than you are. Keep in mind that these firms are metro cases and you can move up as quickly as your talents allow. In fact, you want to enter at that level. It will give you time to get your sea legs and establish yourself. And now at last, it's time for case questions. Now, what firms look for? Consultants spend a great deal of their time on the road or at the client side, so they work in small teams and are sometimes put in charge of groups of the client's employees. Often, consultants work under great pressure and turbulent environments while dealing with seemingly unmanageable problems. It takes a certain type of personality to remain cool under pressure, to influence the client without being condescending, and to be both articulate and analytical at the same time. The business of consulting really is the renting of brains, packaged and delivered with an engaging and confident personality. As you work with through the case, the interviewer is asking is this candidate relaxed, confident, and matured, a good listener, a good communicator, engaging, enthusiastic, and intellectually curious, exhibiting strong social and presentation skills, asking insightful and probing questions, able to determine what's truly relevant, organizing the information effectively, and developing a logical framework for analysis, stating assumptions clearly, comfortable discussing the multifunctional aspects of the case, trying to quantify his response at every opportunity, displaying both business sense and common sense, thinking creatively, rolling with the punches, defending himself without being defensive. Case preparation. Case questions can be made simple through presentation and practice. I never like to equate an interview with a test, but they are similar in that more you prepare, the better you'll do. Maybe you've experienced the feeling of being so prepared for an exam that you can't wait for the professor to hand it out so you can rip it right through it. So case questions are the same. Firms look to see whether you have that rip right through it look in your eyes. It's called confidence. Some of my students, even after they got the job, would come into my office and ask me to give them a case. They love doing cases with them. It was no different from a working or CrossFit person. They loved the intellectual challenge and learned something every time they did one. One of the best ways to learn how to answer a case is to write your own case. You are basically re-engineering the process. You need to think of the structure, put the answers to all the questions, plus the interviewer might want to ask. So, interview evaluation forms. Every firm has its own individual evaluation form. However, what they look for is the same. Some are broken down into analytics, structure, quant acumen, and good use of data, communication, eye contact, being articulate, listening, asking probing questions, and note layout, and personal enthusiasm, self-confidence, teamwork, original thought, and intellectual curiosity. To use one example, the main and company interview evaluation form is broken down into three areas: value addition, client or team, and reality check, plus a final summary rating. You rate it from 1 to 5 in several categories under these areas, with 5 being the highest score. Value addition. Under this value addition, you have 5 categories: structured problem solving, business judgment, quant skills, creativity, and drive to results 80/20, plus a final overall value addition score. Client or team. Here also are 5 categories plus a summary score. The 5 areas are drive or achievement, team skills, communication, professionalism, and leadership. Reality check. Under this heading, the interviewer is asked to answer 3 questions. Is this person interested in Bain? Would you have this person on your team? The airport test. Would you pass on or give an offer to this person? Summary. Finally, you get an overall interview rating. In the first 2 sections, there are spaces for an interview to write comments under 2 headings: strengths and weaknesses, and topics to test in next round. I don't care who's giving the case, whether it's Amazon, Pepsi, BCG, or McKinsey, they all look for the same 4 things: structure of thought, confidence level, communication skills, and going beyond the expected answer, that is creativity. Types of case questions. Case questions generally fall into one of 3 major categories: market sizing questions, factor questions, and business case questions. Most of the cases you'll get will be one-on-one business cases. Generally, these business cases are either interview-driven cases or interviewer-driven cases. Interviewee-driven cases are very big and broad. Here's my problem. What do I do? With cases like these, more common to BCG, Bain, LEC, Deloitte, and PwC, you will need to take great care in drawing your structure. Also, your structure should be hypothesis-driven, as hypothesis is the assumed answer, and hypothesis-driven means you need to consider the case from the answer. Other cases are interviewer driven. Here's my problem: I want you to determine market size, price, break even, and profits. In these cases, the interviewer gives you a laundry list of information from which you determine your answers. More common to McKinsey, Accenture, and Oliver Wyman. Keep in mind that you don't necessarily have to answer the question in the order in which they are given. Answer them in the order that makes sense to you. One mistake candidates often make is to quickly jump into calculating the market size. Always lay out your structure before you figure out the market size. Sometimes they will feed you questions one at a time. With the funnel first frustrating, all case questions are valuable learning experiences. Market sizing questions. Market sizing questions surface all the time and can come up during any round of interviewing. Sometimes it's a standalone question, but most often it's embedded in a larger case. When I hear market sizing question, I like to label it. Is it a population based question, a household question, a worldwide question, or a prosperous question? Regardless of the type of market sizing question, your answer should be based on logic and assumptions. There will be instances when your assumptions are wrong. Sometimes the interviewer will correct you, other times she will let it go. The interviewer is more interested in your logic and thought process than whether your assumptions are spot on. If you're still concerned, you can always say, I'm not that familiar with this market, so if my assumptions are off, please correct me. 90% of the time, the interviewer will tell you not to worry about it. However, everything you say has the potential to be pointed, so be ready to defend your assumptions as they should be based on some type of logic. If you just pull them out of thin air, you're risking the interviewer aggressively challenging your assumptions and your credibility. During a market sizing case, you can ask questions only if you don't understand something. If the interview rattles off a string of initials, industry jargon, or slang, and you're not sure what that means, ask. You don't lose points for asking clarifying questions. These questions are tough enough to answer even when you do understand all the information. How it works. As they give you the question, write everything down, determine and label the question. Structure. Listen to the question. Ask clarifying questions only if you don't understand the question or terminology. Lay out your structure first and the steps you'll need to answer the question, then go back through it with numbers. That way, you get a second bite at the apple as you work through the problem again. Assumptions. Don't worry if your assumptions are off. The interviewer is more interested in your thought process. If your assumptions are way off, they will tell you. Otherwise, let it go. Base your assumptions on some sort of logic. You can group several assumptions into one number. Example, the 20% takes into account X, Y, and Z. Base your assumptions on some sort of logic and take advantage of grouping assumptions together. Math. Estimate or round off numbers to make your calculations easier. Write down all numbers. Answer. Review the final answer to see if that number makes sense. If not, say so and pick a new number that makes more sense. You don't have to go through the process again. The interviewer just wants to make sure that you have realized that the first number didn't make sense. Key numbers and facts. When I go into a market sizing question, I've already memorized several key numbers and facts. I don't want to be caught flat footed and I don't want to pull numbers out of thin air and that are going to be difficult to work with. I want numbers that are going to be easy, numbers that I'm familiar with, so I don't do calculations with confidence. So I can do calculations with confidence. So here are some key numbers that you should memorize. This population is 320 million. Life expectancy of an American is 80 years. Even distribution between the ages, that is, there is same number of 2-year-olds as 7 2-year-olds. We know that this is not true. But in a case like this, it's fine to assume there's 4 million people per age group. There are 80 million per generation. There are 100 million US households. Regardless of where you're interviewing, you should know these key facts for your country or region. Also, don't use your friend as a sample population. Chances you are at an elite university and your friends are unlikely to represent the general population. Population based questions. Population based questions are often broken down by generation. 0 to 20, 21 to 40, 41 to 60, 61 to 80, or 80 million people per generation. To calculate a subset of each generation, use 4 million people per year. Thus, the number of people in their 20s would be 40 million, 4 million people per people into 10 years. Sometimes you might want to break it down by men and women, 50-50 split. Plus, how many cups of coffee or coffee drinks are consumed in the US on a typical day? Make assumptions and break the population down by generation. Determine the number of coffee drinkers in each generation. You may want to draw a chart to show how well organized you are and how logically you think. It also makes it easier for the interviewer to follow your thought process. Estimate the number of light drinkers, medium drinkers, and heavy drinkers. Assign an average number of cups per day. Review the final answer to see if that number makes sense. If it doesn't, tell the interviewer that you think that number seems high and pick a new number that seems more reasonable. You don't have to go back through the process again to know your process if it's just one of your assumptions was off. Assumptions. 320 million Americans, life expectancy of 80 years, even distribution among the ages. I am going to divide it into generations 0, 20, 21, 40, 41, 60, 61, 80. That means 80 million people per generation. Reason through your numbers for each generation and fill in the chart as you go along. Kids, 0 to 20. A big part of the population is too young to drink coffee, so I'll assume that 20 million kids too. The 21 to 40 group, I believe, is a lot higher. You have college students and workers, so I'll go with about 75% or around 60 million coffee drinkers. In fact, I think that 75% number is good for the next two generations as well. I think the big difference might be found in the number of cups consumed. Next, I'd like to pull. Next, I'd like to put those drinkers into three categories: light, 1 cup a day; medium, 2 cups a day; and heavy, 4 cups a day. Light drinkers might be high school students, retirees, and people who don't like to be over caffeinated. I'll assume they make up 25% of coffee drinkers or 50 million cups. Medium drinkers make up the bulk of the drinkers. 50% or 100 million drinkers drinking 2 cups equals 200 million cups. Heavy drinkers, probably consultants and investment bankers, people who work long hours, they make up another 25% or 50 million drinkers times 4 cups or 200 million cups a day. Light drinkers, 50 million cups. Medium drinkers, 200 million cups. Heavy drinkers, 200 million cups. That's a total of 450 million cups of coffee and coffee drinks consumed a day. Now, you may not agree with all my assumptions, but as long as you can follow my logic, I'm fine. Household questions. It's really long. And we still haven't reached 50 questions, 50 pages. Oh my god, where is the break? Okay, at 16th page. Okay. We are at what? It's just 38th page, right? Hi guys, it's kind of like reading all through 37 pages. It's just kind of hurting my throat. So let's take a 5 minutes break again. All right. Hi guys, I'm having something to eat. So if you guys can join, so it will take me just like another 10 to 15 minutes to like join you guys back on this book reading and get us back to this kind of case solving, case management consulting kind of thing. So we can go forward.